Hola clase. Today we are going to see how to make the scheduling of a project, and for that we're going to make what is called a Gant diagram, and we're going to try to make it in one screen in under 10 minutes. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but we are going to do our best. Now, what you want with the scheduling is to allocate the resources so you can finish the project in whichever time is the minimum completion time for that project, which means you need to allocate it to the specific tasks. Remember that you want to be working with the diagram, not with the precedence chart. So for that, you need to know before doing the scheduling how to create a network diagram, and then how to get the critical path from it. And we've got videos for both of those things, so check them. The critical path is going to give you both which tasks are critical and which is the minimum completion time of the project. Now, the how-to, you're going to work with both the Gantt and the scheduling table at the same time. So you need to decide your x-axis, and you're going to make it as long as your minimum completion time, because you need to schedule everything in that timeline. So if you think of it, that x-axis is going to be like a progress bar. Then what you're going to do is place the critical tasks. And the reason you start with them, it's because those ones only have one possible place. They don't have margin. And remember, instead of margin, we call it float, but it's the same. It's telling me that they have to be in a specific place. That allows you to fill the schedule table as you go, because you know that the float is 0. So the earliest and latest finishing times and starting times, it's going to be the same. Then what you're going to do is you're going to place all the non-critical tasks, everything that does have a margin, in the Gantt diagram. And for that, you're going to do it one branch at a time. You're going to work in your network diagram, seeing what precedes what. And from that, you're going to be able to read which are, first of all, your margins, your float, and then your earliest starting time, E for earliest, your earliest finishing time, how soon can you be done with it, your latest starting time, remember L for latest, and your latest finishing time. Once you've got all of that, you can move the tasks around, especially the non-critical tasks, so you can optimize your resources. How can I do it using the least amount of resources possible? Okay, we are going to see it with an example. I already have the x-axis. This is the time, how many units, and I've made it so I've got enough space for the 26, which is the minimum completion time. And in this table, I only have the duration. Remember that EST stands for the earliest starting time, meaning how soon can you start with that task. The EFT is the earliest finishing time, meaning when is the earliest is going to be done and the next task can start. And the latest starting time means which is the latest that you can start with a task so the whole thing doesn't suffer, and LFT is the latest finishing time. And remember that float is just a fancy word for the margin. How much can you move the tasks? So first, I'm going to make a long bar as long as the minimum completion time, 26 in this case. And in that bar, I'm going to place the critical tasks. So I'm putting them in green so we see them, which are the ones in the critical path. These ones don't have any margin. So I know there's only one place they can go. So I'm going to simply make a bar here for A, which has a duration of 5. One for E, this is a tiny one. F lasts for 4. Then we've got G, which is a long one for 14. And then I for 2. If there is no margin, there's only one place they can go. So I can save myself a lot of trouble. And now I simply read from there when the task starts and when it finishes. That's going to give me the earliest starting time and the earliest finishing time for each one of the tasks. There is no margin. I cannot move them. So at the same time, I get the latest starting time and the latest finishing time for all those tasks. So I'm going to come in here and all of these tasks, A, E, F, G, and I don't have a float, don't have a margin. So if I read A, I can get it started at 0, and it's going to take 5 to be done. So I'm going to put that 5 there. So if you think of this 5 is coming from adding the duration to the earliest starting time. And the beauty of the critical tasks, excuse me, let's change color, is that I simply come here and transfer the numbers. I'm going to repeat with E. I find it in my graph. It's telling me the earliest I can start is 5. And this 5 is coming from reading this value here in the graph. And the earliest it can be done, because it takes 1 to be done, is that 6 in there. So I'm going to put that 6 in there. Again, there is no float, no margin, so I'm simply copying the numbers. And then it's a matter of repeating the process over and over for all the tasks in that line. Reading from the table, or from the diagram, better say, when can they start, when can they finish, and transferring them to the next 2 columns because they don't have any margin. The beauty of doing it by that is that now I've got most of my table complete. Once we've got the critical task, the table is half full, but I still need to find which are the margins for these non-critical tasks. So I need to go back to my diagram and start finding them. So I can start from the beginning or from the end, frontwards or backwards, the mode that you find the easiest. But if I start from the start, this is a critical path. Remember, green is a thing, so I'm putting it there. I've already covered that one. And so I'm going to look at this other branch. And it's telling me that I can start also with B. So I'm going to make a bar in here, which is as long as B, which is 6. And I'm going to move across that branch, seeing what can it be done afterwards, until I find a task that I've already placed. So if I look at here, it's telling me that B then will give up to H, but I need to be careful. There are 2 tasks that need to be done up to H, so I'm not going to place it yet. I'm going to go back and see that I've got this task that hasn't been placed yet in my diagram. It's telling me that it can start as soon as A is done. So I'm going to place it in here. And for each one, I'm making a bar with the length of the task. And now I can put H afterwards because it's telling me that once I finish with both B and C, I can start with H. H is a 12, so just count carefully. And if things go well, here you go, H12. And now these two branches have joined. I would see what comes after H. And it comes I, which is a good thing because it's here in my critical path. So now I've got a gap. The diagram is telling me that as far as I am done with H, by the time I start, I'm good. This is my float, the margin that I've got for those tasks, how much I can move. Same in here. B needs to be done before H starts, and H cannot start until here. So that's another float that I've got there in total. I can move things that much. So now B is going to have a float of 3 in here and 3 in there. That's going to be a 6. Whereas C and H have a float of 3, which is this value here. Float, margin, same thing. So now I can come here and read which is the earliest and latest that I can get with them. So in other words, B, this is the earliest I can start with it, which means this is the earliest is going to finish. But I can move it up to 6, which means it could come all the way up to here, technically, and the whole project will still be doable in 26 units of time. So that's going to give me the latest I can start and the latest I can finish. So I'm going to transfer these values to the table. That way I can be completing the table as I go. And then it's a matter of doing the same thing for all of them. C can start at 4. 5, read carefully. And it takes 4 to be completed. So the earliest it can be done is 9. But I can move it all the way up to 8 and 12 because it's got these 3 units of float. Same with the H. I can look at when it can start as early as possible and as late as possible and complete the finishing times. And then I only have one task there to be completed, which is this one that we haven't looked at yet. So we're going to do the same. It needs to be starting only after A is done with, and it has a duration of 3. And it's telling me that it needs to be finished by the starting of G. So I'm going to find where it is, and it's a critical task, so it's a good thing. And that is the margin. So I'm going to collect the float, and then I'm going to read the earliest and latest starting times. It's 3, and the duration determines the finishing times. Okay, we're almost done. Now we need to wiggle all these non-critical tasks because I don't want to be using 3 different teams if I don't have to. So for my scheduling, the first team, the easier way of doing it, it's putting them in the critical tasks because you know where they have to be, and just leave them there. Don't touch them, don't sweat it. You know that's the only place they can go. Now I'm going to play with this one. Let's change color. Let's go fuchsia or something. Because those margins here mean that I can move stuff so something can be done at the same time. Let's have a look here, for example. Well, if I want to start C as soon as possible, this person's busy. But what if I move it so it starts after that? Will I be able to do it? Yes, that's not a problem, because this margin here will absorb that part. That means that if I decide to start B as soon as it can happen, I put it here, remember that was a 6. I can put the C afterwards and still be okay. I can move the A tiny bit and things will not suffer. I still have a float there, because remember that this needs to be done only in time for I. Well, will I be able to place this one anywhere else? No, I'm just going to put it in here. I want to start it as soon as I can. That way, if there's any mishaps, I still will be able to absorb them. Well, this was the first person. That means that I have to have a second person here and a third person there. Multitasking, so by 26 units in here, the whole project is finished. Okay, let's do a tiny statement here. So we need 3 teams, workers, supervisors, whichever you want to call it. One works in the critical tasks, which are A, E, F, G, and I. And that's going to be from the start to 26 units. Then the second team is going to work in B, then C, and then H. And that's going to be from the start to only 21 units. And then a third one that works only in D from weeks 5 to 8. We box that, and my pen has died, so I will do it over the screen, and we are done. Now it's your time to go and practice. Thanks for watching.